Thank you all for coming and for attending FACT's Innovations in Creating Thriving and Equitable Communities event. FACT is extremely grateful for all of your ongoing support and partnership to advance our mission and work. We obviously couldn't have the impact we do in the lives of the people we serve or the communities we work in without all of you and without the extremely talented and dedicated team of staff members that I'm so grateful that Fifth Avenue Committee and our affiliates, Brooklyn Workforce Innovations and Neighbors Helping Neighbors, have. Many folks in the room know FACT for our innovative affordable housing, development and management. Others know us because of our grassroots organizing and policy advocacy, and still others for our incredibly impactful programs, training, and classes and supports that we provide to nearly 6,000 low and moderate income New Yorkers every year. One of the greatest things about this event is that it gives everyone a small glimpse of the depth and breadth of FACT's programming and impact, helping to showcase that depth and breadth and its highlight, and to highlight FACT's involvement with some of the most innovative aspects of community development were some of the reasons that we decided to add panels to our event for the first time this year. So I think they were fabulous, I think they were informative, and I want to thank, many of the panelists are still here in the room tonight, and I just want to give them a round of applause. Thank you all very much, and our moderators and our presenters. It was truly an informative dialogue and debate, and I think that's exactly what we try to be a part of, as part of advancing community and economic development here in New York City. Since this is a benefit reception, I especially want to acknowledge our lead sponsors for tonight's event, Citi, the Richmond Group, Two Trees, and BFC Partners, all of whom have folks here in the room today. Thank you all for your support. I also want to thank the wonderful host committee members. I have to do a special shout out for Juan Barahona in particular. He gets a special thank you, as does Crystal Rivera from the FACT Board of Directors, who's also on our board fundraising and communications committee. Some people are natural born fundraisers. I think we found 2 of them. Thank you very much. Yes, we should absolutely and clap for them. And of course, I need to thank all of tonight's sponsors and donors. We've exceeded our 125,000 fundraising goal. We've raised more than 130,000 so far. That is fabulous and absolutely something we should thank everyone here. Your generous support directly supports Fifth Avenue Committee's programs and classes and housing that, as I said, touch nearly 6,000 low and moderate income New Yorkers annually. And this is a tremendous vote of confidence in Fifth Avenue Committee, our work, and our mission. And we very much appreciate it. Just turning for a second to some of the more challenging things that have been going on over the last several months. I think we've all watched the news over the last year and seen or been a part of the protests calling for justice and reform. Eric Garner's mom, Gwen, worked at the Fifth Avenue Committee as our first bookkeeper more than 30 years ago. Eric came to a lot of FACT events as a child and spent much of his life in Gowanus houses. And though he and his family moved from the neighborhood later in life, his funeral was at a local church in Gowanus. What Eric's tragic death and others like it and the continued concentration of poverty and growing inequality tell us is that we can't grow and prosper as a society if different groups, often distinct in race and class, define quality of life and justice differently. We need equal access to opportunities and to safe, livable communities where individuals and families are able to thrive. These events and goals are not abstractions for the Fifth Avenue Committee or our committed funders, including the 17 funders participating in the Change Capital Fund. The Change Capital Fund is a collaboration of funders investing in 5 sophisticated community organizations in New York City, including Fifth Avenue Committee and our Stronger Together initiative, to use new data-driven strategies to fight poverty. Led by FACT, Stronger Together with our partners, Brooklyn Workforce Innovations, Red Hook Initiative, and Southwest Brooklyn Industrial Development Corporation, all fabulous partners who deserve their own round of applause, honestly. will help nearly 1 in 3 poor adults over 4 years living in New York City Public Housing Authority developments in Red Hook and Gowanus access education, jobs, and supports to lift themselves and their families out of poverty. We're very excited about this initiative and the hope that it can bring to the families in our community. I'd like to invite up Brian Mendes, Associate Director of Adult Education and Literacy Programs, and Stronger Together participant Bernice Tyler to present FACT's Impact Investor Award to the Change Capital Fund. And as they come up, I also just want to do a shout out. I don't know if Wendy Fleischer is still here, but Wendy Fleischer is the donor representative for the Change Capital Fund and a former executive director of Fifth Avenue Committee, and we really thank her for all her support. So, Brian.
Thanks, Michelle. So, well, I have a really great job. I work in the Adult Education Unit of the Fifth Avenue Committee. And one of the best things about my job is I get to teach a high school equivalency class down at the Red Hook Initiative in Red Hook. And I think when you hear Bernice speak in a minute, you'll get a sense of why that job is so great. So I want to introduce to you Edwin Mojica and Bernice Tyler, two of my students from my high school equivalency class.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Bernice Tyler. This is my classmate, Edwin. What? Edwin Mahiga. We are in the FAC GE class in Red Hook at the Red Hook Initiative. I find this class because of a meeting I had with the Fifth Avenue Community Service. They were helping me with my paperwork for extra help for my medical. Eddie found this class by visiting Red Hook Initiative. Eddie was looking for work. He knew that he needed his GED. In class, he learned about FAC, partner called Southwest Brooklyn Industrial Development Corporation. Through them, Eddie found a full-time job because of the collaboration these organizations. Eddie and I have a better chance of reaching our goal. The collaboration is called Strong Together and Supported by Change Capital Fund. We and everyone are grateful for your support. Thank you. Thank you.
I think what people, how many people here know Red Hook? Raise your hand. Okay, yeah, so you know how beautiful a place that is, right? It's an incredible place with incredibly beautiful people like Bernice and Edwin, and the reality is there's a lot of folks there who need access to opportunity and who really need a path towards advancing towards their dreams. And the reality is 3/4 of the residents in Red Hook live in public housing. And this is going to be, for some people, this is going to be a statistic and for others, it's going to be a staggering thing. The median income in public housing in Red Hook for a family of 4 is less than $16,000 a year. I think we all know how expensive it is to live in the city of New York. We all know how challenging it can be to be disconnected from the rest of the city. It takes a mile to get to the closest train station. There's 2 buses. It's challenging to get places. And so when people really want to advance themselves, it takes a lot of effort. And so, it's part of our work as part of Fifth Avenue Committee and our partners through Stronger Together to offer those opportunities and opportunities that specifically help people advance themselves in ways that we know can work because we know our programs are proven. And it's really because of the Change Capital Fund and their investment. They're investing $1 million in Strong Together over 4 years so that we can serve nearly 1 in 3 adults living in public housing in Red Hook. So I'm going to invite Pat and Greg as representatives from the Change Capital Fund to talk more and also to present them with the Investor Award. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I used to work in Red Hook many, many years ago. It's really a pleasure and honor. I'm really so proud to be able to accept this award on behalf of Change Capital Fund. As Michelle mentioned, it's a group of 17 foundations and banks that work together. We decided a couple of years ago to try to elevate a type of community development work that emphasized collaboration and that was data-driven. And we had a very extremely competitive and somewhat contentious competitive process to select 5 organizations. As you can imagine, there are many amazing community development organizations in this town. And to no one's surprise, Fifth Avenue Committee rose to the top and was one of those that we selected. And as I said, I'm really proud and honored to accept this. And as hard as that process was, the real hard work is done in the communities. And so we really respect and honor that work. And I'm going to ask my colleague, Greg Scheffelbein from City Community Development, we want to be sure to list each and every one of the funders of Change Capital Fund.
Thank you. It's stories like the one we heard today that are really the reason that these 16 funders have all come together, financial institutions and foundations, supporting organizations like Fifth Avenue Committee and our other grantees. So in addition to New York Community Trust and City Foundation, we just want to make sure that we thank Altman Foundation, Capital One, Deutsche Bank, Enterprise, FB Heron Foundation, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, LISC, M&T Bank, Mitsubishi Bank, Mizuho Bank, New York Foundation, the Sherman Foundation, and the United Way.
I'm just going to make a quick shout out. Michelle already stole a little bit of my thunder. I wanted to acknowledge Wendy Fleischer, who is the donor rep and who makes us look good every single day. And I also want to acknowledge Kate Dempsey. She was here earlier. She had to leave. She is with the city's Center for Economic Opportunity. Her boss, Matt Klein, was on the panel earlier this afternoon, and they are at the table as a partner with us, which is very, very important. And finally, I'd like to acknowledge Steve Flax from M&T Bank, who is our chair. And Steve is also a former Fifth Avenue Committee Executive Director. Thank you very much.
You want to move
Over here.
this? You want to... Is that okay? Can you see you guys? Return here.
Greg.
Can you see everybody? Thank you. It's amazing, you know, whenever 6 or 17 different funders can agree on a strategy to lift up neighborhoods and to lift up strategies that help fight poverty, that's definitely something that we have to celebrate. So can we give the Change Capital Fund another round of applause? Now turning to our People's Voice Award, FAC and our Sunset Park-based affiliate, Neighbors Helping Neighbors, know all too well that many working-class immigrant families rely on Sunset Park's affordable housing and access to jobs on the waterfront to help them thrive and strive for the American dream. Sunset Park has been home to many waves of new immigrants over the more than 100 years, and now has New York City's largest Mexican and third largest Chinese population, as well as a large Arab population. It's an incredibly diverse and rich neighborhood, and this diversity is partly made possible by its range of affordable housing stock. About half of the housing in Sunset Park is affordable housing, rent-regulated housing, some of it owned by private owners through project-based Section 8 housing, and the other half is market-rate housing. But the half that is affordable is threatened by a number of ways, even as the cost of market rate housing is increasing as well. Fortunately, the neighborhood has strong, committed elected representatives who understand the complexities of gentrification and displacement and the need for public policies and efforts to ensure a mixed-use, mixed-income neighborhood where immigrants are welcome and can thrive. I'd like to invite up our friend, Councilmember Carlos Menchaca, and a longtime Sunset Park tenant advocate, Melissa del Valle Ortiz, who will present the People's Voice Award to Congresswoman Nida Velázquez and Dan Wiley, who's representing her today.
Thank you. Buenas noches, everyone. Thank you for that. Buenas noches. Okay, so I'm going to ask everyone to do a couple things. If you can all come into this void here for a couple, you're going to see why, because you're going to see the screen, and I will get killed if that doesn't happen, if you don't see and hear the words that will be coming to you. So just come in here. And while you're walking, I want to say thank you to Michelle and everyone at the Fifth Avenue Committee. There's no better partnership than the partnership that it's aligned on the mission that you're all supporting here tonight. And standing strong here, stronger together, we have our incredible council member, Brad Lander, who has had a history here, of course, at the Fifth Avenue Committee, but continues to kind of create the framework that we're all building on. And so I just want to say thank you to Councilmember Brad Lander for all the support you give me, Fifth Avenue Committee, and our community. Thank you so much for coming together here. And so now I'm gonna hand it over before we give the award to Melissa. Melissa is a Sunset Park resident that continues to come up with so many of the innovative ideas that we're thinking about on the ground, and that's all coming from her experience as a resident in Sunset Park. But not only that, being a fierce advocate for not just her family, but the families that she represents as a tenant organizer. And so thank you so much, Melissa. Let's hear a few words.
Throw money, throw money. Where the dollars at? No, I'm only kidding. Okay, so they told me to keep it short, so I'm just gonna read really fast. Okay. In a report released today by the National Low Income Housing Coalition, the average full-time hourly wage required to afford a modest two-bedroom apartment in New York City is $28 an hour. That would mean that a single mother raising a family of two would have to come up with additional funds to feed her family, pay for public transportation, clothing, utilities, childcare, and everything else needed to get by on a day-to-day basis. At this rate, she can never expect to see her family. There are many stereotypes associated with residents in project-based Section 8 housing, including that we are lazy, drug addicts, using the system, hiding our money. The list goes on and on. However, that doesn't apply to the majority. What you typically don't hear about are the personal stories, like the woman who became a widow at 25 and has been raising her daughter in a one-bedroom subsidized apartment for 20 years, and because of that subsidized apartment, was able to go back to school and become a nurse. Of the family of 5, who while the father worked full-time, they could afford for the mother to stay at home and raise their 3 sons, each of whom went on to go to college. This family later went on to buy a home of their own in South Carolina. Or the family of 3, who can afford to get by on a limited income when both parents acquired AIDS in the 90s and the mother is now dying from cancer, while their 30-year-old son struggles with severe depression. And my story, the community activist, who was able to engage in community service while raising 2 children and working full-time, and recently became the first Puerto Rican or woman of color to serve as president to the League of Women Voters for New York City. Sí se puede. These are the stories we're able to tell you due to the preservation of affordability, because of organizations in our community like FAC and Neighbors Helping Neighbors, fighting to preserve these developments all over the city, especially because of our elected officials, Carlos Menchaca included, namely Nida Velázquez, who recently worked with HUD to ensure the continued preservation of both Sunset Park houses and Cabana houses in Williamsburg. She worked diligently with our tenant association from the beginning to preserve its funding, whether here in New York City at the HUD office or in DC on the Hill, whether here in Sunset Park or in Williamsburg with Cabana houses. I can tell you that I've seen her here hands-on, not talking about it, but being about it. And if you're from New York, you know what I'm saying. It's for those reasons and for not forgetting where she comes from, because let's face it, she's a long way from Yabacoa, Puerto Rico. But her pride keeps her grounded in the community, for the community, en nuestra gente. I'd like to introduce my city council member for giving recognition and for your contributions to giving families a place to call their home. And I'd like to recognize Nydia Velasquez as a strong leader in our community and a representative and a supporter for affordable housing.
So now, as we present this award to the Congresswoman, I also want to say that what you just heard here, that speaking truth to power moment for Melissa and her story, and all the stories that we're lifting tonight as success stories for us, we need to continue to do that. But someone that has been doing that for decades now in so many ways, to opening doors, not just to the work in the housing, but work in the economic development field, in small business, in her committee chairmanship work in Congress, on the resiliency work, on days after Sandy. The Congresswoman was there to be the voice in D.C. And so, like Melissa said, she goes to D.C. We know that she's there. She's presente. And as someone who's just starting, I look to her for so much guidance. I look to her for that continued compass that we all need to stand behind. We all need to stand behind her on that front. And so, without further ado, we're going to have Dan Wiley accept the award because, of course, she's working really hard for us in Washington, D.C. So let's welcome our incredible Dan Wiley.
Thank you, Carlos. Whoa. So the Congresswoman obviously can't be here because she's doing your work in Washington, D.C. And she often likes to joke that she feels best when she's not in Washington because that means there's less damage that the House can do. And she also feels very strongly and gets so energized by all the local great grassroots work. We're so incredibly privileged to have nonprofit, grassroots organization working on social change and lifting people up like Fifth Avenue Committee and like organizers on the ground like Melissa Ortiz and with Neighbors Helping Neighbors. Marcella. So we have a live video feed. Well, maybe not so live, but she cares so much about the district. She actually hired Michelle more than 15 years ago to open up her Southwest Brooklyn office, which I then inherited. Thank you, Michelle, for setting that up 15 years ago. So we actually got a meeting done in videotaping this acceptance. So I bring you Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez live from Fifth Avenue Committee.
Good evening. I regret that I cannot be there in person tonight, but I wanted to congratulate the Fifth Avenue Committee on its 37 years of excellent service to the community. For 3.5 decades, Fifth Avenue Committee's programs have assisted thousands of New Yorkers and improved numerous neighborhoods, from preserving and building additional affordable housing and community facilities to training low-income New Yorkers for jobs and careers. All of you have helped expand opportunity for New Yorkers. Thank you, Michelle, and all your staff for everything you have done for our community over the years. I am pleased to accept Fifth Avenue Committee's People's Voice Award in recognition of commitment to affordable housing, a commitment that I share with Fifth Avenue Committee, Neighbors Helping Neighbors, and all of your community partners. While the Great Recession is set to be over, it's not over for most New Yorkers who struggle to make ends meet with rents throughout the city escalating and homelessness on the rise. I was happy to work with you to preserve 40 affordable low-income apartment buildings in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, constituting 360 units of Section 8 housing, which opted to stay in a housing urban development program. We're working to maintain critical affordable housing options for our neighborhoods. I believe this success is a testament to what we can achieve when all parties, including tenant groups, the public, government agencies, and property owners, share a commitment to making New York's neighborhoods better places to live for everyone. In that regard, I am honored to accept the People's Voice Award on behalf of hundreds of thousands of working families in South Brooklyn and throughout my district. I look forward to working with you for years to come.
Don't forget to vote.
You can see why we were able to preserve nearly 400 units in project-based Section 8 housing when you have the combination of Melissa del Valle Ortiz, Congresista Nidia Velázquez, Councilmember Carlos Menchaca, and fantastic organizers on the ground like Marcela Matenes. So thank you all so much for that, for the People's Voice Award. I'm going to invite up Melanie Ash, co-chair of the Fifth Avenue Committee Board of Directors, and we're just going to round it out and thank everybody. And first, I want to do a shout out and, of course, acknowledgement to Councilmember Brad Lander, who was at the panels earlier and did a fantastic job of presenting the New York City Council's recommendations as it relates to helping preserve and grow manufacturing and industrial jobs in New York City. And as always, longtime friend and supporter of the Fifth Avenue Committee, whose shoulders I stand proudly on. So thank you, Brad. So as I said, tonight is about celebrating the work, tonight's about celebrating the mission, and tonight's also about celebrating your generosity. So with that, we have a couple folks that we want to do some shout outs to.
Thank you, Michelle. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Fifth Avenue Committee's board, on behalf of its dedicated and tireless staff, on behalf of its passionate volunteers, and on behalf of the many, many Brooklynites that it is our mission to serve, I want to thank our major lead sponsors, City Community Capital, the Richmond Group, Two Trees, BFC Partners. I want to thank our Opportunity Builder sponsor, Industry City, our neighborhood leader sponsors, LISC and NEF, Hershen, Singer, and Epstein, the Lightstone Group, Mega Contracting, M&T Bank, and JP Morgan Chase. We could not do what we do without your support, and we thank you for it heartily. I also want to mention and thank all of our community builder, advocate, and friend level sponsors for this evening's event, whose names you may have seen on the screen earlier this evening. Thank you very much for your support. And finally, we do have a very special community builder sponsor we want to highlight tonight. Helene and Dimitri, who are celebrating their 25th anniversary tonight. We want to thank them for sharing their special anniversary with us here and for their generosity. And to thank you and to congratulate you on 25 great years, we have a special presentation for you. Please. And finally, thank you to FACT's Board of Directors, to its wonderful senior staff, Kathleen Parisi of K2 New Business Development and Event Planning, who's put together this fabulous event for us, and of course, Ron Zach, who has been everywhere and has been amazing with his staff, Rebecca and Jack, in the fundraising and communications unit. You have been an overwhelming success, so thank you, Ron, and your team. And to everyone, thank you very much for coming and for your support, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
I'm just going to ask the honorees and presenters to come up for one large group photo, and then after that, Yomotoko is going to come back up and help us dance the night away. So thank you.